In the United States, more than half the individual states have already agreed to embrace the Common Core standards, that is, learning expectations in literacy and mathematics that will ultimately replace state standards in those two areas. Moreover, almost all the states, all except Alaska and Texas, have strongly indicated that in pursuit of federal funds, they will adopt the Common Core standards. There are many groups already working to create new assessments. As a result, big changes are underway in the standards that we've been using and in what we expect students to know and be able to do in the classroom. Here's a preview of what you might consider. I've read the Common Core standards. They're accessible on the web, and I might encourage you to take a look at the same things. Let me give you some of the good points as well as some of the challenges that lie ahead. Some of the great points of the Common Core standards include the integration of literacy in every discipline. You'll notice, for example, the explicit integration of nonfiction writing into not only literacy and math, but social studies and science. You'll notice specific suggestions for the amount of nonfiction informative writing even at early elementary grades, which is significantly more than many states have had in the past. Moreover, there's a very clear sequential set of steps for literacy and for math that lay out with clarity what students should know and be able to do. And perhaps one of the other really fine parts of this document is that there are examples of student work that show you what proficient work is and what non-proficient work is. That turns standards into clear expectations in a way far better than I think many states have done in the past. But let me also offer some cautions. In the preamble to these documents, the statement is made, this is only about what we think teachers ought to teach, but after all, how to teach it is really a matter of their personal discretion. Each individual teacher has to best decide that. And I must tell you that I dissent from that point of view. You can't distinguish the what from the how. We can't say, for example, that nonfiction writing is a matter of personal taste, or giving accurate feedback to students that's frequent and specific and fair is a matter of personal taste. There are things where there are areas of individual teacher discretion, I acknowledge. But as a profession, we must also come together and say, just as we agree that there are certain things students must know and be able to do to advance to the next level of learning, there are certain ways that we convey that information, that we assess that information, and that we work together with other colleagues and with students to best enable students to learn. Working through the Common Core standards is going to be difficult, but it's going to be possible, and I think it's going to offer us the opportunity to have better fairness and clarity than we've had in the past. Finally, a note to those of you who I know have sincere disagreements with the Common Core. The document isn't perfect. I acknowledge that. None of the state documents were perfect either. The comparison ought not to be between Common Core standards and perfection. The comparison ought to be between Common Core standards and going back to the halcyon days, the good old days before standards. Those were the good old days when we never really knew what the differences were between kids of different ethnicities and different economic status. Those good old days when every school, every district, every state could define proficiency in ways that were radically different, claiming that everything was fine, when in fact any objective observation of the evidence would tell us that things weren't so good. I just want to respectfully suggest that whatever flaws there might be in the Common Core standards, they represent a significant advance over where we are now and a dramatic advance over where we were 20 years ago. Be careful about wishing for the good old days. Regressing to that does not help our achievement or our equity.